Welcome to the E-Show with Neil Ravin. With over 1,000 NCAA commitments, the EHL is the proven path to college. Turn it up and learn more about the college placement leader at the Division II and III levels.
Welcome to the E-Show, presented by the Penalty Box Foundation. The Foundation's mission centers around their daily motto, "We take care of our own," as they help out all of those within the hockey community who've experienced a catastrophic event. Learn more at penaltyboxfoundation.org. Once again, my name is Neil Ravin. This is episode number 32. And let's welcome in this week's guest on the podcast. It's the head coach of the Seacoast Spartans. Welcome to the E-Show, Brett Tryder.
Hey, nice to talk to you, Neil.
So, Brett, this is the second time I've had you on the podcast. A lot has changed since I had you on the first time. I had you on with your assistant, Kurt Mallett, also the hockey ops guy there for Seacoast, and I had you on with Shay Flanagan. But one season's over, new season coming up here. How do you feel about where things are at for you and the Spartans right now compared to a year ago?
I'm excited, Neil. A year under our belt here, handful of guys returning. I think we're in pretty good shape. I think we did a lot of good things last year. Had trouble scoring goals, but I think overall as an organization, we did some pretty good things, and we've had pretty good luck recruiting this year, I think.
And I wanted to ask about that because, yes, you have a few returners, but you also had a pretty older team, a veteran team. There were a lot of age outs on last year's team. Was that kind of an idea of yours that you wanted to have going into an inaugural season like that?
I think it would be a plan. I think some of that had to do with the fact that I brought some guys up from my prior team that happened to be AHLs. I wanted to give them a chance to play in the EHL, but it is probably a good idea to have a lot of AHLs in your inaugural season, some guys with some junior experience that have an idea of what the league's all about and what junior hockey's all about. And
with your team, it wasn't that it was a bad year by any means. You probably would have wanted the record to be a little bit higher, but you were competitive throughout. You never really seemed like an expansion team. Was that kind of another goal to be competitive from day one, to make sure people didn't think that you were just a new team in the league?
Oh, of course. Yeah, no, I think, being around junior hockey enough here, it was, I certainly had an idea what to expect. Again, we were competitive in most of the games, and I think with we had one guy that got 25 or 30 goals, we could have had 10 more wins. So I think you're right. We were pretty competitive, and the record certainly wasn't what we'd hoped for, but I think we made some strides.
And I got to bring up the end of the season schedule. I'm not sure if you remember this, but following the showcase, I mean, we'll go January 31st to the end of the year. You went Avalanche, Rangers, Wizards, Railers, Lumberjacks for 2, Express for 2, Avalanche, Seahawks. You played like all of the top teams right at the end. So now you come into this year's scheduling. Our schedule's up now. Was there a goal in mind there to avoid doing that again, or did it help you because you won your first playoff game because of that?
I think it did. I think it did help us. I don't look at it too much like that, Neil. If you look at who you're supposed to beat, who you're supposed to lose to, you're kind of making a self-fulfilling prophecy. So, I'm happy to play anybody at any time. And, if it works out that way, it works out that way. You never know who's going to come to play in a different year with a different team. And, the Avs and the Rangers are going to be tough. And you never know who else. Walpole had a heck of a year, and naturally you wouldn't want to schedule those guys at an inopportune time. But I don't think too much about that. I think you've got to play everybody in the league. You hope to be as good as those teams anyway, and if you're not, then ultimately the schedule doesn't matter.
And I have to ask the next question because I've brought it up with every Team of the Week feature that I've done so far, because obviously with the way the season ended, every team was in their own different spot. For your team, you actually had just finished your first round series after knocking off Walpole in the play-in game. You battled Vermont hard, but you lost that series up there with the Lumberjacks. Then the season gets canceled. Did you take a step back and say, thank God we were already out, because if we were still in and then things got canceled, it would have been that much harder?
Yeah, that's a double-edged sword. I think, you'd like to call yourself co-champions with the other 8 teams that were alive. If that were the case, you never want to get eliminated. I think the Walpole win was big for us. And I think it was gravy after that, considering where we finished in the league. And I think like you said, I think we did battle hard in Vermont. Either of those games could have gone either way. So I think it was a decent closure to our season. We would have loved to have still been alive and have those bragging rights, but I think the closure was fine. I think we ended up proud of the way we battled Vermont, and happy about that Walpole win.
And that's the key word, right? Closure, because there's a few teams that were still playing that said that they just never got that sense of closure and what could have been. If you had still been playing, right, say you had gotten through Vermont during that series, and then you would have had to have some sort of exit meeting with your team, whether it was individual or as a whole team, what would you have said to make them feel better that the season was over before it actually was?
Well, I think it would have been a little bit easier for us than some of those teams that won 30 games. As an underdog, I think we would have felt good about it, and wouldn't have felt like we left anything on the table at that point. To be completely honest with you, I do understand. I sympathize rather on for some of those other teams that were 30-win teams, and those guys really must have felt like they could have won the league. I'm sure there were 5 teams that were 100% convinced that it was their year. So I can imagine that being tough, but from where we were, I think if we won that Vermont series, that would have been our championship, and I think we would have been okay with it.
And yeah, you still had 17 wins in the regular season, and yes, it was a below 500 record, but I'm willing to bet that record will improve this year. But on top of the 17 wins, what guys always say, the more important number is you look at the commitments. Your first year in the league, you come out, you put up 10 commitments. That's a darn good year. Is there one or two of the kids that committed? I'm sure you're proud of all of them, but is there one or two that when that kid committed, you took a step back and said to yourself, that's a huge accomplishment?
Yeah, I think I had Shea Flanagan for 3 years. He's headed to Southern Maine. I think that's a really good fit for him. I think he could have played a lot of places. He's from Southern Maine, but I think that one's a special one to me. I had his 2 brothers for 2 years each, and sent them off to college. And that would have stung if I came up empty on that one. So that's a nice one for us. I think a guy like Drew Eade heading to Worcester State. I think that's a great one for us. Just a dynamite kid, dynamite family. He works hard off the ice, and just such a great kid. You want to make sure those guys find a good home, and I think he fits the style of Worcester, and I think that's one I'm really happy about as well.
And you mentioned there's a couple kids in there that when they gave out their quotes for who they were most thankful for and grateful for, they indicated, Nick Nault, one of them, when they found out that the Seacoast Spartans were going to be in the EHL, they wanted to go back to the rink where they played their midgets, right? Because they had played 18U or 16U or whatever it was there. How quickly after, you became the head coach and the team got accepted into the EHL, did you start reaching out to some of those kids to see if they would come back now that there was a junior team in the EHL?
Yeah, actually, we had four guys, I guess, that left Seacoast after their 18th season. They didn't want to play on the independent team that we had here at the time. Those guys reached out to me. Being on teams in the league, I couldn't reach out to them, or I wouldn't reach out to them. So that was, one of them reached out. We talked, and then you've got to contact the other coach and let him know what's going on, and it kind of progressed that way. that wasn't a goal of mine to grab those guys. That was kind of icing on the cake. Naturally, with Nault and Long and Tardif and Eid, we were happy to have those guys back. That was a good base. That was a great base for us to start with those guys. But it wasn't a situation where I was reaching out to them and trying to pull them back. It's more of the fact of them enjoying their time up here and enjoying the rink and everything we have to offer up here.
And you just mentioned a couple of names that I wanted to bring up during this podcast in Tardif and Dan Long, because I think what they did this past year may become really common this upcoming year. No predictions on what college hockey will do, but say college hockey gets a later start than usual and they go to like a January 1st start, you may see a lot of 2000s or younger that were already committed, come and play junior hockey. And then the number of kids that take off on January 1st to go finish the season at the college level, that may increase. When Nevin Tardif, when Dan Long came to you and said, I have a chance to commit right now, forego what's left of the junior hockey season, how did those conversations go?
Oh, it's simple. There were conversations that I brought to them. As a matter of fact, I spoke with the coaches. Mealy at Westfield, great guy. I'm always happy to send a guy to him. And he needed a guy that was a little bit of an offensive touch on his blue line. Wanted to talk to Long and ask me if Dan would consider going in January. And obviously I'm going to propose that to the player. It's that's what we do. We sacrifice some wins, no doubt, with Long being our top scorer at that point, and Tardif being our top goalie. We gave up some wins for that, and that's what the guys. I heard the other podcast. That's what the guys tell you they're willing to do, and we put it to the test. We put our money where our mouth was on that, and pulled the trigger. Sent those guys to good homes. I knew Tardif would have a chance to play right away. I wanted to make sure of that before I sent the goalie to play college. I wanted to make sure he wasn't going to fill a third spot, and he went in and played right away. So, that's what we're all about. And at that point, you're able to bring in two new guys, and that's two more guys you have the opportunity to place in college. So, it's a trade, right? It's a trade-off that you're going to risk being not as good of a team for doing your job.
And with this upcoming year, I know Valente, I believe, is a 2000, a kid that committed for you from this past year's team. If you have some of those players, like I've said, I'm not going to hypothesize about what's going to happen with college hockey. Maybe they do start on time, maybe they don't. But say you do have some of those 2000s that are committed and will likely leave in January that reach out to you looking for a place to play. How do you entertain that conversation knowing now that they're leaving halfway through the year?
That's a tough one. It's dangerous to take a guy away from a coach, and then all of a sudden, we'll use Long, for instance, take him away from Westfield State, then all of a sudden, a top 10 team in the country wants him. How do you handle that? Like that's more about what makes me nervous and what would make me kind of stay away from prying those kids.
Yep.
Away from the team. Valente got a nice spot at Worcester. I'm excited for him, and I'd hate to do any damage there. It's going to be tough to find a college spot, I think, next year if they give those seniors their eligibility back, and a lot of guys stick around in college, and start doing their grad school and playing one more year of hockey. So I hate to pull a kid out this year where it's going to be so difficult to find a spot next year.
And that's a great point that you just make, because the domino effect of what one player does at that next level all the way down can have a big impact. I said this when we were in Nashville, which I want to get to next, is playing college hockey is an honor, which is why we take the 156 commits that we've had so far from this past season, and we really highlight every single one of them, because to make that commitment is a huge accomplishment. And for you, it goes back to, recruiting the kid just to come play for the team first, and then what you do with that kid while he's with your program. And for the Seacoast Spartans, I saw you guys twice out on the road this offseason, once in Denver and once in Nashville, two showcases that sometimes have some younger players, but also have some diamonds in the rough, if you will, for this upcoming year. And both of those events were very successful for you. Can you talk about why that was?
Yeah, I think that's an ode to the EHL, to be honest with you. I think the EHL, you walk into a showcase like that, and we feel like we're the best option for those guys, and that confidence comes out, obviously, in the conversations that we have. So, the Denver one's kind of a special one for me. I love those guys out there. It's, typically good culture guys and that kind of thing, and a bunch of skaters. We got a couple of young guys coming in from that showcase this year. And as you said, a couple of guys that won, the MVP of the showcase is coming to us. Good player, AAA kid. So that's your diamond in the rough, So I think you're 100% on with that. And I think, we would have been in Vegas if that showcase had happened. We would have been in Chicago if that showcase had happened. We're building here. We're building. So, we're certainly getting calls from interested players, but we've also got to go out and find a couple special guys at the same time.
And I know for myself, from a league perspective, going out to those events, it's to tell kids who don't know what the EHL is, a league that's on the East Coast, more about the EHL, right? So when you're recruiting those players, especially in a year like this year, how hard is it sometimes to convince the younger high school kid to leave all of his friends in high school in Colorado and come play junior hockey on the East Coast?
I think not as difficult. This year seemed a little bit better, and I think most of the kids I talk to, you talk to them on day one, and they go out and do a little research that night, and you see them again on day two, and you find out they've talked to some people they trust, and all the word about the EHL comes back positive. They're extra excited on day two after they do their research, and they look at our rank, and they research the league, and maybe even make a couple calls about myself or Kurt or other guys that we have in the building. So, I don't think it's as difficult, as it may have been years ago. Guys are nervous about their high schools and their junior teams playing this year. Certainly New Hampshire has been in better shape with the COVID situation. So I think people feel better about sending their guy to New Hampshire this year. Maybe getting out of California, where if they play AAA in California, they're only going to play in-state teams, right? And maybe not have the competition they normally have. So this year was kind of, all that stuff turned into a positive for us, I think.
So it sounds like you're almost alluding to this year being easier than last year to recruit, even with the pandemic.
I think so. I think,
okay.
With guys doing the research and being nervous about where they're going to end up, that they do some research on us and find out the culture's good, find out the league's solid, and they wanted to sign and be done and be safe and start planning for the season.
Well, let's talk about what you just kind of also mentioned a little bit in there in your facilities, right? So I reached out to all of the kids that have committed for you from this past year's team for an additional quote to talk about what made this past year special and what helped, set the Seacoast Spartans apart. And almost all of them pointed out the facilities. Can you talk about what the rinks at Exeter has to offer and just the overall cleanliness and the 2 rinks and the ice time and the gym and the academy, what it all does for the player?
So I think, for a player to come in at that age and see grown men buffing the floor 4 times a week, you could eat off our floor. It's unbelievable. And that sends a message, to keep the locker room clean, to take care of the gym. It's a special place. Everybody's going to say their facilities are great, but I put this rank number 1 in our league, number 1 in Tier 3. So that gives us a nice recruiting stance right there. But the gym is beautiful. We've got a trainer that works with the guys 2 or 3 times a week. Locker room is top notch. We have the synthetic ice for the goaltenders. There's no better facility, and to see the guys noticeably working to keep it clean, like I said, sends the message to the guys to take care of it, take care of it and do the right thing in the rink. And, the facilities on campus are great, and the housing situation's good too, right off. We've got the apartments and houses off over at Hampton Beach, which is about 10 minutes away. Summer beach houses that the guys live in. So it's all around a real good experience.
So do you sell that? Maybe September, you have a few more chances to go to the beach. Yes, you'll be shoveling snow in December, but you can go to the beach in September. Do you sell that?
Yeah, 100%. We'll have some workouts on the beach, and it's great for team bonding and spending time together. It's that September and a couple months in October. It's a nice time to be out there, and again, great for team bonding and the boys getting together.
And then within the facility, the number of staff that you guys have is extensive, and it allows you to just be the head coach and the GM. Can you talk about some of the staff like Kurt Mallett that help make your job that much easier?
No, it's an unbelievable team. I'm glad you brought that up. Kurt Mallett, I think, well-known guy, All-American at Salem State, and a great pro career. Just a dynamite guy. He knows everybody in New England. I think between Kurt and him being around for so long, you've got Chris Davidson, who coached at St. Mike's for 15 years and prep school for another 5, and he's in the building with one of our younger teams. Ed Cini, I think, spent 25 years in the college ranks at St. A's and Potsdam. Michael Hahn is now on board. Nice pro career. He played for me when I coached at Plymouth State. Short pro career and coached some college hockey on the women's side. And there's just guys in and out of the building, right? Bob Emery, his kids play for our youth program. One of the Merrimack coaches, and Coach Sue's over at UNH. His kids are in our program. So there's always guys, around the rink. You get the chance to go over your power play with the head coach at UNH, just, talking and casually talking about stuff like that. It's a special place to be. A lot of years and a lot of networking. Yep. There's nobody in the country we can't pick up the phone and call. It's from USHL teams to Division I teams to Division III teams. It's great to have that network. It's pretty important for the guys to play for a team that's got a network like that too.
And when you have all these, coaches that you just mentioned with the resumes that they have coming in and out of the building, in which you're the highest level team, do you ever feel pressure when those guys are walking around and maybe you have a game going on or whatnot?
No, I beat most of them when I was coaching at Plymouth, so I'm not worried about that. No, I think it's all good. I think there's just such a healthy atmosphere of, hey, what were you doing on that penalty kill? They'll come to me and find out how I was setting that up, and it's a really, really healthy back and forth. I don't feel like there's any eyes on us except maybe to write down something we're doing or the honest answer is no, not really. It's not a pressure situation at all. It's more of a combined effort and a complementary group,
And now as we begin to look ahead to this upcoming year, we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, the scheduling process and the gauntlet that you went through at the end of the year. And then this year, kind of out of our control, we had to schedule things in a certain way where we knew that games could be played. So between when you kick off the season and Thanksgiving, you play 15 games at your rink, 2 games up in Biddeford, Maine with the Eclipse, and 1 game at Merrill Fay in Laconia against the Wolves. So you don't really leave, a 50, 75-mile radius of your rink up until after Thanksgiving. Obviously, that's not by choice. That's because of what's going on. how will you keep your players focused during that time and know that the longer trips are coming, in the second half of the season?
Yeah, we don't have a ton of trips that we dread. A lot, we're in such a nice spot. I think I haven't even got our home and away record last year, but I'm sure there wasn't too much difference in our home and away. Travel in this league is a treat, really. It's right up the road, and we've played in every rank. There's nothing daunting really about our travel. So we don't mind being the away team as much. I'm not sure there's a ton to prepare for there. It'd be nice to reverse it, right, and play all the games on the road, and then in the beginning before the snow hits, and all the games at the end of the year at home when there's snow. But you can't do much about it. I don't think really as much prep as just to be aware of it. Hopefully we get on a rhythm of playing home games, and that's what we're used to, so we're good. And then we get in a rhythm of playing road games, and we get in that rhythm, and that suits us, So
yeah,
just about creating, separating the two halves of the season and treating them kind of differently.
It's a good point, because your longest trips really are a weekend in Vermont and a weekend on the Cape. It's just funny how the schedule works out this year, that you're basically home the first half, on the road the second half, minus the showcase. For the second straight season, you guys are going to host a showcase in January. To have an event like that, I know you said there was no pressure before, when you're coaching in the building, but do you feel pressure from the league to host a better event?
Not after the show that Kurt Mallett and the crew put on last year. There's they took a lot of pride in that, I think, last year. Hopefully the league feels the same. It's an excitement at this point. You get to see all your buddies from college coming in and getting them a cup of coffee and all that kind of stuff. So it's I think there's some prep work to be done, but I don't think there's any any chance or chance of failure, so there's no nerves. I don't think nerves would be the right way to put it, really. Just kind of an excitement. We look forward to it. We look forward to seeing everybody and showing off our building, and we're excited for it again this year. This year should be even a bigger event, I would think.
And there's only two showcases right now. Unfortunately, we had to cancel the Massachusetts showcases because it's just very uncertain when we can even play games in Mass. But I'm sure you've noticed on a few of the Team of the Week features, I've kind of wrapped every one of them up the same way, in creating what we've called the all-time lineup question. I've had to frame it in different ways based off of the coach's history. But for you, you used to be the independent junior coach for the Wolves. Then you had a year with the Wolves, the 2016-17 season. You mentioned you went away from the league for 2 years, 2017-18 and 18-19, and then back to the league this past year. So let's take out the 2016-17 and the 2019-20 seasons, right? One with the Wolves, one with the Spartans. From those two teams, can you give us the all-time Brett Tryder lineup with 3 forwards, 2 defensemen, and a goalie?
I was hoping you were going to let me have those independent teams when I came right out of college.
Well, you can mention one or two if you want to.
Yeah, like Colin Bork at UNH and Nicky Marin at Lowell, Musil at UMaine Arno. We had some pretty special players when I moved from college to juniors. But so some of the guys that I've had, I had Timmy Hazelton. Was an 18-year-old when I had him in my first year in the EHL. Had him again, for a couple years after that. But he's at Endicott now, defenseman, really nice player. Nick Nault would probably be on his left. Nick's kind of a special player. He came, he got some penalty trouble last year, but just a special player. I didn't have too many defensemen better than him. In our league this year. So I think, those two on the blue line would certainly be competitive with anybody. Shea Flanagan's going to take my face-offs. Again, you put him with somebody that can bury, and he's a 60 or 70 point guy. Unfortunately, we didn't have that really this year for him, but still had a 30-point season heading to Maine, Southern Maine. So Flanny would be taking the face-offs. Jackson Penner probably be up and down the left wing for me, another 30-point guy as an 18-year-old last year. And then on the right wing, you got a kid like Bo Jarzen, who had a decent year for us this year. Had some college offers. Actually, he could have been another placement, but decided he's going to Florida Gulf Coast. And I wasn't going to talk him out of that one just to put it on our website. So, you can't talk a kid out of Florida Gulf Coast, and that's it. He'll be an enemy for life. So he's heading down there. I had a kid named Ethan Homix. I'm not sure if you remember Ethan. Played for us at the Wolves. Who was a dynamite player. Became a really good player too. And then I think Tryder. If you give me those 2 years, Tryder would have to be our goaltender. Really, really good player. He's going to have a great college career. We're excited to keep watching him.
And it's a good lineup. And I remember Homix as well, one of the kids that had the most speed in the entire league that 2016-17 season. So I want to thank you for coming on the podcast. Obviously, a very weird time right now, but it sounds like for you guys, things are going even better despite the pandemic. So I appreciate you coming on the podcast. Definitely a team, an organization for all the folks at home to keep an eye on. I know it's just their second year in the league, but it feels like the Seacoast Spartans have been in the EHL forever. So thanks for your time, Brett.
Thanks for having me, Neil. Looking forward to getting things going.
Thanks for listening to The E-Show. Learn more at easternhockeyleague.org and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Also, be sure to subscribe and get notified when next week's podcast is released.